I moved to a small town about a month ago. I thought I needed a break from the city. I'm a data analyst, so working from home in a quiet neighborhood felt perfect. I found a nice little house on a cul-de-sac and felt hopeful about my new start. Those first few days were peaceful and calm. I unpacked my things and set up my workspace. Everything seemed normal. But on the third night, I lay in bed trying to sleep when I heard it. Muffled voices coming from next door. At first, I thought I was just getting used to the new sounds. Neighbors often stay up late, right? Still, the voices grew louder over the next few nights. It sounded like angry people arguing. I couldn't make out their words, but it shook me. I hoped it was just my imagination, but then I started seeing shadows moving in their windows. I felt my heart race a little every time I caught a glimpse. I told myself I was being silly. I was alone in a new place. It was easy to overthink. Then there was laughter. Not the kind you hear from kids during the day. This was late at night, too late for kids to be out. I hadn't even seen any children in the neighborhood. Felt strange, and I shook my head. I must be imagining things. I decided to meet my neighbors. I thought it would help. I knocked on Mrs. Dalton's door, a couple of houses down. The waiting felt too long. When she opened it, her eyes narrowed. "What do you want?" she asked, sounding almost angry. I stammered my name, but she just nodded and shut the door. I felt confused and a little scared. The days passed, and I noticed more odd things. I could feel my neighbors looking at me, but they acted like they didn't want to talk. It made my stomach knot. Was I the one who felt wrong? Every time I sat in my living room trying to work, that strange laughter floated through the walls. I wanted to engage, but it felt like I stepped into a bad movie. One night, the arguments next door grew louder. I heard things crashing and someone screamed. I picked up my phone to call for help, but then I heard a whisper right behind me. "Why are you still here?" I whipped around, but my living room was empty. Just the dark and the quiet. It was freezing in there. I didn't know what to think. Why did I stay? I had moved for peace, not this strange feeling. That night, I sat on the couch, my heart racing. Nothing felt right. Was this just a nightmare I couldn't wake up from? My palms were sweating, and I couldn't shake the feeling that something was very wrong in this town. The next day, I knew I had to do something. I couldn't let fear control me. I decided to take a walk. Fresh air might clear my head. After all, it was a nice day, and I needed to remind myself that I was just overreacting. I stepped outside and felt a little more at ease. The sun pressed warmth against my skin. I walked through the neighborhood, trying to be casual. I noticed how quiet everything was. Too quiet. The houses were well kept, but a heavy stillness lingered in the air. As I turned the corner, I passed by Mr. Thompson, the man who lived on the corner. He was in his yard, trimming hedges. I hesitated but finally approached him. "Hi, I'm new here," I said, feigning confidence. "How long have you lived in the neighborhood?" He looked up, his expression unreadable at first, then softened just a bit. "Long enough," he replied tersely. His eyes darted down the cul-de-sac as if he were expecting someone. I felt a chill despite the sun. "Is it always this quiet?" I asked, trying to grasp something meaningful from him. "I heard some noise from next door the other night." His reaction was instant. The tension in his body shot up. "It's best to mind your own business," he muttered, before turning back to the hedges. I stared after him, stunned. Was he warning me? I decided to back off. As I continued my walk, I noticed something odd, a small figure moving in the shadows of the alley next to my house. It burst into view for a moment, and I saw a girl, maybe 10 or 11, standing there. She looked strange, her hair messy and clothes tattered. She was staring directly at me. I felt a jolt of fear. "Where do you live?" she asked in a tone that felt too flat for a child. Just down the street," I said cautiously. "You shouldn't stay here," she whispered, her eyes darting around as if someone might hear. "They'll come for you." "What do you mean?" I pressed, but she just shook her head and took a step back into the shadow. My nerves tightened. I wanted to run, but something kept me glued to the spot. "Are you okay? Where is your family?" She didn't answer. Instead, she pointed toward my house. You need to leave. Now. And then she was gone, disappearing so quickly into the darkness that I wondered if I imagined her. My mind raced. Who was she? Why did she say that? I looked back at Mr. Thompson's house. Had he heard her? The chill was back, a weight settling on my chest. I hurried home, slamming the door behind me. I felt trapped. My peaceful retreat was turning into something I didn't understand. But the girl's warning echoed in my mind, and I wondered if leaving was the only option left. Then I heard that laughter again, coming from next door. It was louder now, echoing and distant. I pressed my ear against the wall, feeling frozen, wishing I could forget all of it. Seeing the girl had shifted something in my mind. I didn't know the full story, but I was sure I was tangled in something dangerous. That S when I saw it, something dark moving in their yard, slowly creeping toward my house. My breath caught in my throat. I wasn't sure if I should look away or confront whatever it was. I hesitated, heart pounding, as I watched the dark shape inch closer. The late afternoon sun cast long shadows, but this thing moved with a purpose. Maybe it was just a trick of the light, but it felt too real. I tore my gaze away from it to glance at the front door, debating whether I should run inside or figure out what it was. Just then, I noticed it very clearly. A figure, a child like the girl from the alley. But this one was different. It wore a dark hoodie with the hood pulled low over its face, hiding everything except for its small frame. I felt a chill creep up my spine. My mind raced back to the girl's warning. I held my breath, willing myself to stay quiet, but I was too terrified to move. The figure paused, and for a heartbeat, I thought it would turn around, but instead, it crouched lower, as if it was looking for something. Then it began to crawl toward my house, moving unnaturally slow, almost as if denying the laws of time. I squinted in confusion, trying to make sense of it all. Was this a game? Was this what children did? I wanted to shout, to jerk my door open and demand to know what was going on. But I stayed frozen, watching as it reached the edge of my porch. My pulse raced erratically. Was this a bad idea? A wave of dread washed over me. I had to know, but every instinct urged me to turn back. Suddenly, I heard laughter again, more intense this time. It filled the air, mingling with the unsettling atmosphere. My throat went dry, sounded joyous, but in a way that felt wrong. The figure turned toward the sound for a fleeting second before straightening up. Then, without warning, it bolted up the porch steps, knocking against the railing with a loud thud. I jumped and stumbled back, nearly crashing into the wall. It was too fast, too erratic. My heart raced as I struggled to catch my breath. I wanted to scream, but nothing came out. The figure slipped through the sliver of the open door next door. The laughter erupted once more, ringing shrilly, echoing in my ears as it faded into the house. I felt a wild urge to run, to escape from this nightmare. But something kept me tethered in place, a need to understand what was happening. I retraced the girl's warning in my mind. You need to leave. Now. Could it be connected? I needed answers, but every time I thought I found a path forward, more questions surfaced. With a deep breath, I dashed to the window, peering through the blinds. I couldn't see anything, just the darkened outline of the neighboring house. I wondered if I should be concerned, or even call someone. My heart raced with uncertainty. Then it hit me, if I didn't know what I was dealing with, I had to find out. Just as I was about to consider my options, the laughter burst forth again, louder and more chaotic than before. It hit with a jarring intensity that sent a shiver down my spine. In that moment, realization struck. I couldn't stay idle any longer. I needed to confront this. But then, a voice filled my mind. They'll come for you. I turned slowly, staring at my front door. As if in response, it shook slightly, rattling against the frame. Something was coming for me, and I had no idea what it was. I took a step back from the door, my heart pounding. Whatever was outside felt close, almost alive. I had to make a decision. My instinct screamed at me to run, to lock myself inside and call for help. But another part of me, fueled by fear and curiosity, pushed me to confront whatever was out there. Taking a deep breath, I felt the cold sweat on my brow and moved toward the door. I hesitated, hand hovering over the doorknob. If I opened it, I'd be stepping straight into the unknown. With one last glance through the window, I noticed the outline of the neighboring house more clearly. It was eerily still now, devoid of life, but I could see movement, the shadow of something pacing within. That laughter erupted again, shrill and manic, echoing through the air. My decision solidified. I needed to follow that sound, understand what was happening. Time slipped away, and my fear morphed into something sharper: determination. I pushed the door open slowly, heart racing as the creaking hinges seemed to scream at me. I stepped outside, the cool air biting against my skin. The porch felt like the edge of the world, and I was about to plunge into darkness. I made my way toward the neighbor's house, cautious and quiet. The laughter faded, replaced by the soft rustling of leaves and a sudden wind. For a brief moment, I thought about turning back, but the thought of what lay hidden kept me moving forward. I crept along the side of the house, peering through a grimy window. My stomach tightened as I caught sight of a flicker of movement. The figure was there, the child with the dark hoodie. But now, several other children surrounded it, faces obscured by whatever they wore. They danced and twirled, shadows twisting under the dim glow of overhead lights. The laughter turned into a haunting chant, a melody that gnawed at my sanity. Panic surged through me. I needed to get back inside. But as I turned, I heard a soft voice, almost a whisper. "Help us, please," it called from somewhere nearby. I froze, recognizing that voice. It was the girl from the alley. Fear became a suffocating weight. I strained to listen, but the darkness cloaked everything. "Help us find our way home," the voice repeated, this time more insistent. I felt a pull, as if I were drawn into their despair. Should I run or answer? My legs trembled, barely able to hold my weight. Just then, something brushed against my ankle, icy and unsettling. I jumped back, my heart racing as I scanned the area for whatever had touched me. That S when I saw it, a small, dirty hand reaching around the corner of the house. A split second later, the child with the hoodie bolted past me, laughter ringing out like a siren call. I bolted, fear spurring me as the sound of laughter echoed, relentless and closing in. "Don't go," the voice cried, desperation lacing each syllable. But the moment I turned to look back, everything went dark. The world fell away, and the laughter faded into nothingness. Realization bubbled up inside me. I was not safe, and whatever was happening was just beginning. I stumbled backward as darkness enveloped me. My heart raced, and panic gripped every part of my body. I couldn't hear anything except the pounding in my ears. It felt as if I had been wrapped in a heavy blanket, unable to escape. Then, as abruptly as it had come, the darkness lifted. I found myself standing in the middle of the deserted street outside my house. Confusion washed over me. The neighbor's house loomed nearby, its windows dark and silent. I shook my head, trying to clear the fog from my mind. Had I imagined it all? "Help us," the girl's voice pierced through the silence, pulling me back to the reality of the moment. I glanced around, desperate to see who else was there. But I was alone, though I could still feel that chilling presence from before. I stepped forward, heart in my throat. "Where are you?" I called out, hoping my voice would reach her. The wind picked up, swirling around me. I wanted to move toward the sound, but fear rooted me to the spot. Then, out of the corner of my eye, I caught a glimpse of movement again. A figure darted across the street, slipping between the shadows. It looked just like the child in the hoodie, quick, nimble, and undeniably real. "Wait," I yelled, instinctively starting to follow. I sprinted after the flicker of motion, my breath coming in sharp gasps. The laughter returned, ringing out like a maddening echo, teasing me from somewhere just out of reach. I rounded a corner, and there she was, the girl, watching me with wide eyes beneath a tangled mess of hair. "You have to come with me," she urged, her voice urgent. "Before it's too late." I hesitated, uncertainty flooding my mind. Too late for what? She shushed me, glancing behind her nervously. "They're coming. We don't have much time." Before I could respond, she turned and dashed toward the alley. Without thinking, I followed. My heart raced as we navigated the narrow passage between the houses, the walls brushing against my shoulders. Finally, we reached a wall at the end. The girl pressed against it, looking for an opening. "There's a door here," she murmured, her hands frantically brushing over the old bricks. "Please help me find it." I glanced back into the alley, where darkness pooled like a living thing. "What's behind there?" I asked, the question escaping my lips before I could stop myself. She bit her lip, fear flickering on her face. "The others, they want you too. They've been waiting. If they get you," a chill ran down my spine. Before I could process her words, I felt it again, the pull. Whatever was lurking back there was real, and it wanted me. There was no time left. "I'll help you find it," I said, kneeling beside her. "Where is the door?" In that moment, I sensed a dark power closing in. Just behind me, the laughter transformed into whispers, chilling and disembodied. I felt something brush against my back, and the girl's eyes widened in terror. I closed my fingers around a jagged stone in the ground, ready to defend us. Then, as tension filled the air, I heard a loud thud, a sound that echoed through the alley, shaking the ground beneath us. I spun around, half expecting some unseen force to emerge from the darkness. Then everything went dark again. When the darkness receded, I found myself back in the alley, but something was different. This time, the air was heavy with a thick, stuttering silence that swallowed every sound. I blinked, trying to adjust my eyes to the dim light filtering in from the street, but the girl was gone. "Hey!" I yelled, panic creeping back in. "Where are you?" No answer. Just silence. I felt like I was shouting into a void. Then I heard a soft, plaintive whimper coming from behind the wall. My heart lurched. I rushed over, feeling the rough bricks against my fingertips. "Is that you?" I called. The whimper grew louder, and I pressed my ear against the cold surface. "Help me, she's here, you have to hurry." The voice was weak and filled with terror. I didn't know if it was her or someone else, but I had to act. I felt around the edges of the wall, brushing aside ivy and dirt. My fingers found a crack, just enough for me to pry it open. I pushed as hard as I could, and the wall creaked, but it wouldn't move. Frustration boiled inside me. "Come on," I grunted, trying again. Then I heard the footsteps, quick, approaching, unsettling. They echoed from deep within the alley, a relentless reminder that time was running out. I glanced back, and in the dim light, I saw shadows spilling from the darkness. They twisted and danced, mocking me with their movements. I squeezed my eyes shut, desperately wishing the scene away. When I opened them again, they were closer. "No, no, no," I murmured under my breath. I gripped the edge of the wall, heart pounding like a drum. My options were limited. I could stand here and face whatever was coming or keep trying to free whoever was behind the wall. "Please," the voice cried out again, desperation lacing every syllable. I took a breath, gathering my courage. The shadows were almost upon me, and all I could think was that I couldn't let them get to me. I took one last desperate shove against the wall, focusing all my strength into one final push. It scraped against the ground, and with a jagged crack, the opening widened just enough. "I'm coming," I shouted with newfound determination. I squeezed through, feeling the cool air brush my skin as I entered another chamber. It was dark, echoing with whispers that surrounded me. There was a figure slumped on the ground, but I couldn't tell who it was. "Are you okay?" I asked, inching closer, but my words fell flat. The whispers grew louder, swirling like a storm as I realized the shadows had followed me. They swarmed around the opening, a dark mist pulsating with an eerie energy. I backed up, my heart racing again as the figure shifted. Shadows flickered, revealing a familiar face, with eyes wide with fear. It was the girl from before. "They're here," she said, voice trembling. "You shouldn't have come. Now we're trapped." And in that moment, my chest tightened. I understood that whatever waited outside was hungry. It wanted something from us. I could feel it clawing at the edges of my sanity. Then my breath hitched as I heard the whispers forming words. You should have stayed away. I knew I had to make a choice, but time was slipping through my fingers like sand. What do we do? I asked, terrified of the answer that might come. And that was when I saw it, a window at the far end, just out of reach. My heart sank. I felt my heart race as I stared at the window, the faint light beckoning me like a lifeline. But fear still gripped me like a vice. Is there another way out? I asked the girl, desperation seeping into my voice. She shook her head, her face pale. The shadows, they keep us here. We can't let them in. But the wall behind us was closing in. I could feel that cold dread creeping up my spine. Suddenly, a low growl rumbled from the shadows. It sounded like a warning. I looked back, and the tendrils of darkness seemed alive, quivering as if eager to strike. Panic surged through me. We have to move. Wait, she hissed, grabbing my arm. If we run, we'll only make things worse. Her eyes darted around the room, scanning for something I couldn't see. I wanted to argue, but something in her voice held me in place. The whispers grew louder, thrumming with a sinister urgency. Stay with us forever. Their combined voices felt like icy fingers pressing in on my mind, sending chills down my spine. I shook my head to clear it. What does it want? I breathed, even as I began to understand the truth. It feeds on fear, she whispered back, horror pooling in her eyes. And the more afraid we get, the stronger it becomes. That realization froze me in place. I fought against that creeping terror that threatened to claw its way to the surface. I forced myself to think. We have to distract it, I said, an idea forming in my mind. If we're quiet and careful, we can reach that window. The girl nodded slowly. But it's risky. We need to be quick. Just then, a shuddering breath echoed through the chamber, and the shadows pressed closer, their whispering voices turning into raspy laughter. You'll never escape, they taunted. I leaned closer to the girl. On three, we moved for the window. 1, 2 before I could finish. The wall behind us trembled, the shadows surging forward like a wave. I grabbed her hand and pulled her toward the window. Now, we ran, pushing past the shifting darkness. But as we got closer, I realized we might not make it. The shadows whipped around our legs, trying to trip us up. Don't look back, I shouted, not even glancing behind to see how close they were. As we reached the window, I lifted her first. Climb, I urged her, and she scrambled through, her fingertips clutching the frame. I followed right after, almost feeling the cold fingers brush against my back. But as I reached the window, I faltered. I could feel something latch onto my ankle, pulling me back into the cold dark. No, I cried, feeling panic take hold of me. Pull, the girl yelled from above, reaching for my hand. With a surge of adrenaline, I squeezed my eyes shut and pulled up, the shadow's grip loosening as I broke free. Together we tumbled out of the window and into the cool night. We hit the ground, breathless and gasping. I turned to face the alley, though I could feel the weight of the darkness behind me, still hungry and lurking. Did we escape? I asked, unsure if I wanted an answer, but the faint echo of a whisper drifted from the shadows, chilling me to my core. You can't run forever. As we scrambled away, my instincts screamed to keep moving, but a nagging question pulsed hard in my mind. What if this wasn't just the beginning? The street was silent, the cool air wrapping around us as we raced away from the house. My heart pounded loudly in my ears, and I could hardly catch my breath. The girl glanced around, her eyes wide with fear. We need to find somewhere safe, she urged, pulling me toward a narrow alley. I followed her, nerves still prickling at the back of my neck. What do we do now? I asked, trying to sound braver than I felt. I couldn't shake the feeling that the shadows were still watching us, lurking just beyond the dim light of the street lamps. There's a spot I know, she replied, glancing back at the house. Just a little further. Her voice trembled, and I could see the tension in her shoulders. I quickened my pace to match hers, conscious of the darkness curling around us like smoke. As we reached the end of the alley, she stopped abruptly, her breath catching in her throat. It's here, she whispered, pointing to a small door slightly ajar at the back of a weathered building. I peered inside. The room was dimly lit and filled with shadows, but it looked empty enough. Are you sure? I hesitated. Trust me. We don't have time, she insisted. It was a command rather than a suggestion. Without another thought, we slipped inside, pushing the door shut behind us. The moment we were inside, silence wrapped around us like a thick blanket. The air felt heavy, thicker than outside. I scanned the room, my heart still racing. There were old crates stacked against the walls, and the faint scent of dampness hung in the air. What is this place? An old supply room. No one comes here, she replied, her voice low, almost reverent. It's the best chance we have. But I could sense her unease lingering beneath the surface, the way her hands trembled slightly. I nodded, allowing myself to relax a little, but the silence felt oppressive. For now, we just need to catch our breath, I said, trying to sound calm. But what was that back there? I don't know, she admitted, her eyes darting toward the door. But it has to be connected to those shadows. I've heard stories from others who got trapped. They're always looking for new souls. The chill that crawled over me wasn't tea from the cold. What stories? My voice barely escaped my lips. People disappear after seeing them, she said, her voice steady despite the fear flickering in her eyes. They say if you see them too long, you become part of their dark realm. You become what they want, someone who fears. Just then, a sound echoed from outside, something heavy slamming against the door. My heart dropped. Did you hear that? I whispered, my legs tensing, ready to bolt. She nodded, her face draining of color. We need to hide. Before I could respond, the door began to creak open, and my stomach dropped. In that instant, I realized the shadows hadn't just followed us, they were already here. As the door swung fully ajar, a figure silhouetted against the light stepped into the room. I froze. Who are you? I managed to croak, but before the figure could answer, I recognized a chilling truth. That face looked all too familiar. It was someone I had known, someone I thought was lost to the shadows. Help me, they rasped, reaching out toward me as darkness coiled around their form. My instincts screamed to run, but my feet remained planted. This was no ordinary encounter. I stepped back, my mind racing. The person in front of me was someone I had once called a friend. Jake. I hadn't seen him in months, not since he had disappeared. But here he was, reaching out with a look of desperation that cut through the fear gripping my heart. Jake? I whispered, barely recognizing my own voice. My heart raced as I tried to piece together the picture in front of me. What happened to you? He grimaced, his fingers clawing at the air, as though he struggled against the weight of something unseen. You need to get out. They'll take you to the shadows danced along the edges of his form, pulling at him like hungry hands. What are you talking about? I asked, my voice rising in panic. Who will take us? The shadows, they have a hunger, he gasped, pulling closer, though the darkness around him seemed to repel me. They're searching for you. They don't want just anyone. They want fear. You are the key. What do you mean? I don't want anything to do with this. My eyes darted to the door, the creaking sound still lingering in my ears. The girl beside me stepped forward, her expression a mix of determination and fright. Jake, how can we help you? He shook his head slowly, his gaze shifting toward the door. There's no helping me. Once you see them, it's already too late. But you can fight. Don't let them take you suddenly. A low growl rumbled outside, the shadows shifting and growing more defined. I felt a wave of cold wash over me as I glanced at the door. We need to go. Now, I yelled, grabbing the girl's arm. Wait, Jake implored, but I couldn't let myself feel guilty. The shadows thrumming against the room felt alive, hungry. Come on, I urged her, but when I looked back at Jake, I was struck by a painful realization. He was fading, swallowed by darkness, and I had to choose. Couldn't save him? In a burst of adrenaline, I yanked the door open and collided with the night outside. The chill air hit my face, and for a moment, I thought we might escape. But sinister laughter echoed from the shadows, and a low mist curled around my ankles, pulling me back toward the building. "Run!" I shouted to the girl, her eyes wide, but before she could move, a hand shot out from the darkness, grabbing her wrist. "No!" I screamed, and without thinking, I lunged forward, trying to pull her free. The world felt unreal as the shadows closed in, eager to claim one more soul. The girl turned to me, her expression a mix of fear and resolve. "We have to confront them. We can fight," but I could see the doubt creeping in. "Are you crazy?" I said, glancing over my shoulder. I could feel the shadows creeping closer, their forms shifting with intent. "We need to run." But then everything changed. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw a flicker, a glow cutting through the darkness. It pulsed like a heartbeat, promising an escape, but the shadows loomed larger and more threatening. "Over there." I pointed, hope surging inside me. "We have to get to that light." As I tugged her toward it, I felt the shadows claw at my back. My thoughts raced. Would it lead us to safety, or was it yet another trap? I had to know. We sprinted toward the light, our hearts pounding in unison as I could almost hear the whispers behind us rising to a fever pitch. The shadows seemed to close in like a predatory cloak, wrapped tightly around us, urging us to turn back, to give in. I stole a glance at the girl beside me. Her expression conveyed equal parts fear and determination. "Keep going," I yelled, pushing us forward. The pulsing glow grew brighter, flickering like a beacon of hope against the overwhelming darkness. In that moment, I felt a spark of resolve. We had to reach it, no matter the cost. As we neared the edge of the light, I suddenly hesitated. The intensity of the glow seemed to reveal two paths, one leading directly toward the shine, clear and inviting, the other off to the side, dimmer but potentially safe. Something deep inside whispered that the right choice wasn't always the most obvious one. "Which way?" I shouted over the rising cacophony of the shadows pursuing us. The laughter morphed into a sinister song that prickled my skin. "Straight ahead," she urged, her small hand reaching for mine. "We have to trust it." I squeezed her hand tighter as I burst forward into the light. As my foot crossed the threshold, sudden stillness enveloped us. It was surreal, as if we had stepped into another world entirely. The overwhelming tension melted away, replaced by an odd silence, punctuated only by our heavy breaths. We turned to face the darkness we had fled. I hardly dared to breathe as the shadows shifted and waved just beyond the light, their forms angry and restless. They swirled, thwarted for the moment, but I felt the malevolence emanating from them, a hunger that wouldn't be easily satiated. "I think we're safe here," I managed to say, glancing at the girl who still clung to my hand, both of us trembling slightly. "What was that place?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "Why did it?" "I don't know," I interrupted, my mind racing. "But that voice, it wanted us. It's not just about fear. It needs something." Her eyes widened in understanding as we both turned back to the encroaching shadows. I looked around for any kind of exit, any sign that we could escape permanently from the darkness. The light we stood in flickered. It seemed fragile amid the hostility surrounding us. "I wish I knew how to fight it," I said, my voice shaky. "What if we're just delaying the inevitable? We have to hold on to something," she replied, her voice stronger now. "They thrive on fear. We need to face it, not let it control us." I nodded, the weight of her words settling around us. It was a daunting prospect, yet a strange calm tugged at my heart. But how? Before any more questions could form, the shadows roared, rushing at our barrier with terrifying force. It felt as if the very air around us quivered. The edges of the light shuddered, and I realized it could vanish at any moment. In that split second, I understood what I had to do. We need to challenge it together. The girl looked at me, her eyes glistening with uncertainty. "You mean face it?" I nodded and took a deep breath, feeling the warmth of her small hand in mine. With a shared resolve, we turned to the encroaching darkness, hearts intertwined in a fierce loyalty. We stood our ground, declaring that no matter what waited in the shadows, it would not claim us. "We choose to believe," I shouted, my voice ringing out, defiance filling every syllable. You have no control over us. The shadows hesitated, almost recoiling. The laughter turned into a hissing chaos, desperate to reclaim its lost hold on us. Stay strong, the girl cried, her grip tightening. We have to keep believing. Just then, in the midst of the encroaching shadows, a flicker of light erupted, bright and powerful, washing away the trepidation that had twisted around us. Spread outward, and for a moment I thought we had a chance. But just as quickly, the light dimmed, swallowed by the dark. The shadows lunged forward, their laughter roaring in triumph. No, I shouted, panic automatically rising as I turned again to the girl. We can't. We stumbled back, my heart racing as everything became a swirling chaos of shadows and bright light. Then, in an unexpected twist, the shadows hesitated. A whisper echoed in the air, softer now. You don't belong here. They began to retreat, pulling back like a tide as if realizing they had a choice to let go. The moment hung in the air, heavy with uncertainty. As the shadows eddied into the recesses, I felt the barriers of reality waver. It was both exhilarating and terrifying. The girl squeezed my hand. What does it want from us? I don't know, I admitted, my voice barely a whisper. But maybe we're not meant to have all the answers. A creeping thought curled into my mind. Perhaps the shadows, despite their hunger, could not transcend beyond the light we embraced. There remained a gnawing feeling that although they retreated for now, they would return. As if sensing my thought, the shadows flickered and twisted, bathing us in their lingering presence. We'll be back, a voice taunted in the distance, hanging in the corners of our realization. And just like that, the light shimmered, fading gently but resolutely, winking out into the abyss of night. We still had time to breathe, to consider our surroundings before the darkness would call upon us once more. Still, a sense of something unfinished lay thick in the air, questions left to linger on the edge of understanding. What truths had we glimpsed? How long could we withstand what lay beyond? I turned to where the girl had stood, filled with a resolute uncertainty, an equally simmering question lingering between us. I guess we'll need to be ready, I said, with a shaky voice but a steadfast heart. All that remained was the weight of silence, uncertainty draping over us like a fragile curtain, enclosing a truth that both terrified and enticed regardless of the answers we sought. We were not alone in this fight. What came next was anyone's guess.